Well, hello. I've recently taken up trials riding, and competitive trials riding actually. This kind of riding I'm using to develop my skills in the hard enduro and single track enduro racing. And these bikes are fantastic for developing your sense of balance, clutch control, and throttle control. And these skills can also transfer over to the street, especially slow, difficult riding with a passenger on board. These bikes are very sensitive to clutch engagement, and a progressive clutch is a necessity. So I'm doing a two-phase step to adjust and tune the clutch on this particular bike. Phase 1 will involve tuning the stock clutch plates. The process is fairly straightforward. Lean the bike over and remove the clutch cover on the left-hand side of the bike. The joy of competition bikes is the easy access to the different components. In this case, I can get at that clutch cover by simply removing the shift lever on the left-hand side of the bike. The clutch cover has 4 simple bolts with pop-off, and in addition to that, they have an O-ring instead of a paper gasket underneath here. So this cover can be removed as frequently as you want and tuned if necessary. Now, I have an affinity for beta off-road motorcycles. However, this clutch setup is very similar and basically the same typical setup as most motorcycles on the road and off the road today. It's a combination of fiber discs and metal discs squeezed together by 6 springs. Now, I'm just tuning these clutch plates. I'm not replacing them. However, this process would be the same and quicker if I was just simply replacing the clutch. Now, if you've never worked on a clutch before, they're simply sandwiched fiber and metal discs alternating. In this particular case, there are 6 fiber discs, and in between each are 5 metal discs. The metal disc engage with this center hub, and the fiber disc engage with the outer hub. When the spring squeezes them all together, they work as one. You'll notice in this particular shot, the 2 outer fiber discs are different color and different shape. That's significant for phase 2, which I'll show later on. Now, it's important to note that this is a wet clutch. In other words, it uses the engine oil. It's bathed in the engine oil. Wet clutches are great. They're smooth and they're quiet and they're enclosed and they stay cleaner longer. However, they tend to dirty your oil due to the fact that as they wear, the material that is worn off gets collected in the engine oil, which requires changing the engine oil frequently, obviously. Now, these outer fiber discs engage on these tabs with the outer basket. This is a bearing surface, so we need to smooth this surface so as they engage and disengage, they'll slide cleanly along the fingers of the outer basket. My goal is to improve the progressive nature of this clutch and make it less grabby. Part of that process is to remove the excess glue between the pads on the fiber discs. This is a long, tedious process using a jeweler's file to file off this glue residue in between each pad. So each disc takes a little bit of work. Now, once that glue is removed, I next need to file down the sides of these tabs that engage with the basket. This is fairly quick, using a large file and then polishing each tab with a soft metal brush and my Dremel tool. That way you get a nice shiny finish, which should, in this wet clutch, slide easily to engage and disengage the clutch. And once it's all done, is to bolt everything back up together and start torquing the bolts. Now, these bolts only require 10 Newton meters of torque on them, so it's pretty light. And you can probably hold the clutch in place with your free hand while you torque them. If you can't get a good grip, just wrap a clean rag around the clutch hub while you spin it. That's usually enough to give you good grip. I like to clean the O-ring off before I put it back in place. and I usually put just a light coat of white grease on it. This also tends to make it sticky and hold it in its gap inside this housing. Keeps it from spinning around. As well, I put a light coat of white grease on the cover itself. This helps as I place it on the engine. It tends not to grab a hold of that O-ring and pull it out of its gap. Now, there are literally hundreds of trials competitors that have modified their clutches in this way in order to improve the progression and the stickiness when cold that you get in most trials clutches. However, this process could be helpful for any motorcycle with a grabby or sticky clutch. My intent is to put the bike back together, take it for a drive to see if the grabby clutch and the sticky clutch problem that this particular bike had is cleared up. If I find the change, great, and I'm happy with that change, I'll stop there. However, if not, I'm going to move to phase 2, which is going to do a few more things to further improve the clutch. So I wasn't totally happy with phase 1. It made a difference, but I want to improve it even further. So first I'm going to install a very trick Clake one light clutch, which made a huge difference in the weight I need to pull on that lever. Great for trials riding. You can adjust the Clake for pull strength from anywhere from 0 to 75% reduction. Next up is to reduce the overall thickness of the clutch pack by replacing one of the outer fiber discs. As you can see here, the fiber discs on the outside of the stack are darker in color. They are actually thicker as well. If I replace them with a standard thickness clutch disc, fiber disc, it actually reduces the thickness of the overall clutch pack. And in order to do that, I need to tune it much the same as I did in phase 1. Since it's also brand new and has to have the glue removed and the side of the tab polished. The Beta also comes stock with special spring hats that can be turned in or out to increase or decrease the spring pressure on the clutch pack. So once I have this disc replaced out, first soaked in oil, I in turn flip the spring hats so that the thinner part rides into the spring, reducing slightly the spring pressure on the clutch pack. Many trials competitors swear by these spring changes. This reduced spring pressure tends to make the clutch less grabby as you use the lever to engage and disengage it. So my next thing is to put everything back together and try it out. Now, after phase 1 and 2, I'm perfectly pleased. The clutch is much easier to manage, engaging and disengaging, and the weight on the lever is just simply fantastic. Now, I just need to work on my skills. Anyway, until next time.